Shadow Hotel. John and Emily had set out on a long-awaited vacation in Northern California. They wanted to escape their busy work schedules and enjoy a peaceful holiday. Their choice was the Shadow Hotel, nestled at the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. The hotel got its name from the dense trees surrounding it and the shadows that spread as the sun set. When they arrived, the couple was greeted by a stunning view. The sky was painted crimson by the setting sun behind the mountains. Inside, a friendly receptionist welcomed them. "Welcome. I hope you had a pleasant journey," the receptionist said with a broad smile. John turned to the receptionist and asked, "Yes, it was quite enjoyable. Is our room ready?" "Of course, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You'll be staying in room 201. Here is your key. Dinner will be served at 7 p.m. We have a special table reserved for you," the receptionist replied. John and Emily headed to their room. The room had a rustic decor with a large window overlooking the mountain view. Everything seemed perfect. However, as soon as Emily stepped into the room, she felt an inexplicable unease. She couldn't shake off a feeling of discomfort. The first night seemed to go well. After dinner, John and Emily spent some time in the hotel's library. The library was filled with old books and antique items. Emily stumbled upon an old journal and started reading it. The journal was from the 1920s and contained the memories of a couple who had stayed at the hotel. As she read further, the journal took a darker turn. On the last page, Emily saw the words, "We must leave. This place is cursed." Emily closed the journal and turned to John. "There's something strange about this place," she said. John, not fully understanding Emily's concern, but wanting to reassure her, said, "Sweetheart, it's just an old journal. Let's go back to our room and rest." When they returned to their room, Emily was still uneasy. In the middle of the night, she suddenly woke up and saw a shadow in the corner of the room. The shadow was human-shaped and seemed to be moving toward her. In a panic, Emily woke John. But when John awoke, the shadow was gone. The next day, John and Emily decided to explore the hotel's surroundings. During a nature walk, they met an elderly hotel employee. The old man had been working at the hotel for many years and had seen a lot. Emily asked him about the journal and the shadow she had seen at night. The old man took a deep breath and said, "Shadow Hotel holds many secrets. A tragedy happened here years ago. The hotel's first owners mysteriously disappeared. It's said that the hotel is cursed and spirits roam at night." Although John didn't believe the old man's words, Emily's anxiety increased. They decided to research the hotel's history. Back in the library, they found old newspaper clippings and documents. They discovered that in the 1920s, the hotel's owners and several guests had disappeared. These events caused a sensation at the time, but remained unsolved. That night, John and Emily were more cautious. When Emily fell asleep, she saw the same shadow again. This time, the shadow stood in the middle of the room and was approaching her. Emily screamed, waking John again. The shadow disappeared, but Emily's screams woke the other guests. The hotel management tried to calm the situation. The next morning, the hotel manager wanted to speak with John and Emily. The manager seemed concerned about their experiences. Such events rarely occur, but some guests report seeing strange things in our hotel, the manager said. John turned to the manager and asked, "Do you have an explanation for these events? Why are such things happening?" The manager sighed deeply and said, "This hotel has witnessed many tragedies. Sometimes the spirits of the past can't find peace and return." John and Emily were not satisfied with these explanations and decided to seek more information. They decided to explore the hotel's basement. The basement was filled with old items and documents that had not been used for years. While browsing through the dusty shelves, they found an old trunk. Inside the trunk were belongings and letters of the hotel's missing owners. One of the letters described how locals called the hotel grounds cursed lands during its construction. It also mentioned that some guests had experienced strange events. However, the most striking was the last letter from the hotel's owners. This letter spoke of a dark power lurking in the depths of the hotel. As Emily read the letter, her fear grew. "John, we need to leave. There is really something evil in this hotel," she said. John and Emily decided not to stay in the hotel that night and began packing their belongings. However, at midnight, the hotel's electrical system failed, plunging the entire building into darkness. Footsteps and whispers echoed in the corridors. Standing at their room's door, Emily said, "It's dangerous to stay here. We need to leave immediately." At that moment, their room door slowly opened. The approaching shadow was more defined and threatening this time. Emily's heart pounded as John courageously approached the shadow. But the shadow suddenly disappeared, and the room fell silent again. As John and Emily searched for a way out of the hotel, the old employee approached them. The old man said, "I need to help you. You must escape this hotel. But first, there are things you need to know." The old man explained that there was a hidden passage under the hotel, leading to an ancient ritual site discovered during the hotel's construction. This ritual site was where a curse was placed on the hotel by a local ritual performed against the hotel's owners. Guided by the old man, John and Emily found the passage and descended to the ritual site. The site was filled with ancient symbols and strange items. John noticed an old book on the central stone altar. The book described a ritual to lift the curse. John and Emily gathered the necessary materials for the ritual and began the ceremony. The old man helped them and guided them step by step. During the ritual, shadows and whispers swirled around them, trying to frighten them. However, John and Emily did not lose their courage. When the ritual was complete, the atmosphere in the hotel changed instantly. The shadows vanished, and the hotel returned to normal. John and Emily thanked the old man and left the hotel. After their terrifying experience, John and Emily decided never to return to the hotel. Shadow Hotel had become a peaceful place once again. However, the stories told about the hotel's history and their experience would remain in their memories forever. Shadow Hotel was free from the shadows of the past, but the events of that day would never be forgotten. Mystery Hotel. In a remote corner of North Carolina, at the intersection of desolate roads, stood an old hotel that seemed abandoned for a long time. Known as the Mystery Hotel, this building, once a symbol of luxury and splendor, had been forgotten and left to the embrace of loneliness over the years. The elders of the town told old stories about the hotel being cursed. No one really believed these stories, but few dared to step inside the hotel's doors. Jack Turner, seeking to escape the stressful life of the big city and find some peace, decided to stay at this secluded hotel. Jack, a writer, was looking for inspiration for his new book and thought this old hotel would be the perfect place. Being an old-fashioned writer, silence and solitude were his best sources of inspiration. When Jack entered the hotel's spacious lobby, the metallic sound of an old key greeted him. The elderly man who owned the hotel welcomed Jack with a cold smile and showed him to his room. The room was more comfortable than he expected, but there was still something strange about it. Old furniture, faded paintings on the walls, and a slight smell of dampness. That first night, Jack started hearing strange noises while writing in his room. He thought it could be the sound of the wind outside and didn't pay much attention. However, the noises grew louder and began to sound like whispers. Jack tried to compose himself and went to bed, but when he closed his eyes, he felt like someone was watching him. The next day, Jack decided to explore the hotel. Walking through the wide corridors, he noticed old photographs hanging on the walls. Most of the photos showed smiling people, but some faces had expressions of fear. The most striking photo was from the hotel's grand opening. In the photo was a young version of the hotel's owner, standing next to a woman and a child. Jack became curious about this family's story. The strange events at the hotel continued at night. Despite locking his room door, Jack found it open in the morning. Additionally, items in his room seemed to have moved. Jack tried to calm himself by thinking these oddities were due to fatigue. One night, while writing, he again heard those strange whispers. He went into the corridor to find the source of the sounds. The whispers echoed in the empty corridor, leading him to the basement. In the basement, amidst old items and dusty shelves, he found a journal. The journal, written by the hotel's former owner, contained clues about the hotel's dark past. According to the journal, the hotel owner's wife and child had suddenly disappeared one night. The man had searched for them everywhere, but could not find them. The townspeople believed the souls of the woman and child still roamed the hotel. Jack decided to investigate further to determine if this story was true. The next day, he spoke with one of the town's elders. The old man shared what he knew about the hotel's curse. He mentioned that some guests who stayed at the hotel had suddenly disappeared, never to be heard from again. As Jack listened to these stories, he felt chills down his spine, but was determined to solve the mystery. Jack decided to go down to the basement again at midnight. This time, he took a flashlight and a cell phone. In the basement, he once again heard those whispers. Moving deeper into the basement with the flashlight, he found an old door. When he opened the door, he found a dark tunnel. At the end of the tunnel was a small room with an old table in the middle, on which lay a necklace. As Jack picked up the necklace, a cold wind suddenly enveloped him, and the whispers turned into a scream. As Jack tried to return in fear, he suddenly felt a hand on his shoulder. When he turned around, he saw the elderly hotel owner. The man's eyes were vacant, and there was a sinister smile on his face. Jack realized the man was a ghost and tried to run. However, the old man did not let Jack escape and locked him in a room in the basement. Jack was trapped in the room, desperately waiting for help. However, after a while, the door slowly opened, and the missing woman and child appeared before him. The woman explained the truth to Jack. The hotel owner had gone mad years ago and killed his wife and child, burying their bodies in the basement. The woman's soul was trapped in the hotel, seeking revenge, and now she aimed to end the curse by helping Jack. With the woman's help, Jack managed to escape the basement and put the old hotel owner's soul to rest. The hotel was freed from its years-long curse. After surviving this terrifying experience, Jack left the town and turned his experiences into a book. The book became a huge success and gave Jack's career a new boost. However, every night when Jack lay down to sleep, he still felt like he could hear those whispers. The Mystery Hotel had left an indelible mark on his life, and this story remained etched in his memory forever. Shadow Hotel, Heart of Fear. In the northwestern United States, lost among the desolate forests of Montana, there was an old hotel, the Shadow Hotel. Once a symbol of luxury and splendor, it had been abandoned over the years, consumed by nature, and forgotten. Even in the winter cold, the eerie silence emanating from within the hotel chilled the blood of anyone who stepped inside. This story begins with four friends, Emily, Jake, Sarah, and Tom, deciding to test their courage by visiting the Shadow Hotel. Emily was a curious history student specializing in local legends. Jake, the adventure enthusiast, was the group leader. Sarah was a photographer who believed in paranormal activities. Tom, on the other hand, was a skeptical scientist who tried to explain everything logically. When they arrived at the hotel, a cold wind and a rusty old sign greeted them. As Emily narrated the hotel's history, Jake opened the door, and they stepped inside. The entrance hall was dusty and dark. Everything seemed to be in place as if suddenly abandoned, but it bore the weight of years gone by. As they prepared to spend the first night, Sarah found an old key with the number 13 on it. Emily mentioned an old legend that this room was the scariest place in the hotel. Jake decided to open the room's door, and they found nothing inside. However, strange sounds and shadows they heard and saw throughout the night kept them sleepless. The next morning, the group continued to explore the hotel. Emily found old diaries of the hotel owner. The diaries contained terrifying details about the hotel's dark past. The owner wrote about many people going missing and rumors that the hotel was cursed. Although Tom thought these diaries were just old horror stories, Sarah and Jake were determined to find out more. Together, they decided to descend into the hotel's basement. In the basement, they found an old door, and when they opened it, a hidden room appeared. This room was filled with symbols that looked like rituals had been performed there, and there was an ancient book in the center. As Emily examined the book, she realized it was a book of dark magic. When Jake started reading from it, strange things began to happen in the room. Doors slammed, lights went out, and a cold wind blew. Tom tried to explain these events logically, but the others were frightened and considered leaving the hotel. However, Emily's curiosity prevailed, and they decided to uncover the hotel's secrets. That night, they spent more time in the ritual room and examined the book. The book stated that the hotel was a portal used to summon entities from another world. At midnight, the group gathered in the room and decided to perform a strange ceremony. Following the book's instructions, Jake conducted the ritual. Suddenly, a dark energy appeared in the room, and shadows began to move. The group, terrified, stepped back, but it was too late. An entity emerged and dragged each of them into different rooms. Each of them had to face their greatest fears alone. Emily confronted a past mistake. Jake experienced the pain of failing to protect his loved ones. Sarah had to reveal her deepest secrets, and Tom faced a reality beyond logic. As the group struggled with their fears in separate rooms, Emily managed to return to the ritual room. Using the book, she tried to send the entity back, but the book caught fire. At the last moment, Emily realized that the book was not real and that everything was a mental illusion. The group left the Shadow Hotel, relieved to have survived. However, each of them realized that the hotel's dark energy still haunted them. Emily decided to continue her research to completely break the hotel's curse. Jake, Sarah, and Tom returned to their normal lives, trying to forget the terrifying experience they had endured. However, the Shadow Hotel was once again waiting for new victims to test their courage, reminding us that its dark past and curse continued, and nothing was as it seemed. Mysterious Hotel Murder. Years ago, in a remote town in the state of Illinois, a mysterious murder was committed in an old hotel. This murder, still unsolved, had plunged the townspeople into deep fear and anxiety. The mysterious sounds echoing through the hotel's walls, combined with the whispers of ghosts screaming in the dark of night, caused the townspeople to start avoiding this place. The rooms in the hotel emptied one by one, with dusty curtains fluttering in the windows. But one day, the town's young and brave sheriff, John, decided to uncover the dark secrets behind this mysterious murder. At midnight, John approached the hotel's doors alone and started pounding on the old wooden door. There was a deep silence around, but the sheriff felt he heard a whisper from inside. Listening to the whispers behind the door for a long time, John gathered his courage and opened the door. He was met with the hotel's old and dark corridors. Footsteps echoed, and whispers could be heard. The sheriff started checking the rooms one by one, but found no clues, until he found bloodstains and torn clothes in a room on the top floor. Facing a dark presence inside, John tried to breathe through the fear rising to his throat. His desire to solve the hotel's mysterious murder had led him into this dangerous situation. As the presence slowly approached John, he began to step back. But for a moment, he stopped and noticed something in the corner of the room. A large framed photograph was hanging on the wall. John began to examine the photo closely, and his eyes widened. In the photo were the hotel's former manager and a woman. The woman's eyes were empty, her body torn apart. The hotel's former manager, however, was watching John from outside the photo with a mysterious smile. Frozen for a moment, John slowly took down the photo and prepared to leave the room. But at that moment, a mysterious door opened in the wall, and the hotel's former manager appeared before him. His eyes were bloodshot, his face expressionless. John's heart began to race, but he approached the manager determinedly. "Manager, tell me what happened. Why did you commit this murder?" John said. The manager looked at John silently and began to speak in a deep voice. "What happened in the hotel is filled with dark secrets. This murder is an unforgettable story. You'll learn these secrets too, but remember, you've entered a path with no return." With the manager's words, John felt a warmth below his stomach. The whispers echoing in the hotel's corridors, the ghosts screaming in the dark of night, all began to make sense. John looked deeply into the manager's eyes and asked again with courage, "Then, what was the truth? What happened in this hotel?" The manager took a deep breath and continued speaking. "This hotel has a dark past. The murders committed here were never solved. I was a former employee. Years ago, I became a suspect in a series of mysterious murders that took place in the hotel. But the truth was actually much more terrifying. I discovered that an evil spirit ruled within the hotel's walls." John listened to the manager in astonishment. The sheriff, not knowing what to do, suddenly noticed one of the room's walls trembling. A strange light emanated from behind the wall, spreading into the room. With a sudden noise, the wall completely shattered, and a door shining with a bright white light appeared before them. As the manager and John looked at the light behind the door, the room suddenly fell silent. It was as if they had traveled through time. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appeared. She was a woman with worn-out clothes and dim eyes. A strange foul smell spread around, and the woman began to speak angrily. "What happened in this hotel will never be forgotten. The evil spirits have come for revenge." As John and the manager looked at the woman in horror, the entire room suddenly burst into flames. The hotel's walls shook, and the room's ceiling began to collapse. As John made a last effort to grab the manager and drag him out, he felt the dark force of that mysterious figure surrounding them. There was a flash of light, and when John opened his eyes, he found himself among the ruins of the hotel. Looking around in fear, he saw neither the manager nor the mysterious figure. It was as if everything had been just a dream. Taking a deep breath, John stood up and quickly walked away from the ruins of the hotel. After this incident, the old hotel in the town of Illinois was never seen again. The mysterious murders in its history continued to live on forever in the minds of the townspeople and John. And from that day on, the ruins of the hotel were filled only with dark secrets, ghosts, and mysterious events. The terrifying events that took place in the town of Illinois would forever be a nightmare in the hearts of the townspeople. And the mysterious secrets of the hotel would never be uncovered. The cursed hotel of Madrid, Ricardo, and Mara's End of Terror. In an old and historic hotel located in the heart of Madrid, mysterious and terrifying events began to unfold. As these events continued to occur without end, the hotel's owner started to uncover the horrifying secrets of the establishment. Ricardo and his girlfriend Maria had booked a room for a romantic weekend at the hotel. The historical and enigmatic atmosphere of the hotel captivated the couple, but little did they know, a dark secret surrounded the place. The first night seemed normal, but as midnight approached, they began to hear strange and eerie sounds in their room. Initially, they ignored these sounds, but they soon grew alarmingly louder. Maria, trembling with fear, clung to Ricardo and said, "Something is wrong in this hotel. I don't want to stay here." Ricardo tried to calm her, saying, "You're just imagining things. Everything is fine." However, as the night progressed, they began to see strange apparitions in their room. Horrifying ghosts, shadows, and even lost souls started to wander the hotel. Maria's screams echoed through the room as Ricardo struggled to figure out what to do. At that moment, the hotel owner, an old and mysterious man, entered their room. "I warned you, this hotel is cursed," he said. In shock, Ricardo and Maria listened to the old man and began to understand the truth behind the mysterious events occurring in the hotel. The hotel was haunted by the ghosts of a gruesome murder that had taken place years ago. The victim's spirit roamed the hotel seeking revenge, and it had begun to haunt the couple's room. Ricardo and Maria, trembling with fear, struggled to survive. As the night wore on, their room filled with a dark mist. Maria's eyes widened with terror, and she screamed, "Save us." At that moment, the old man entered the room with an ancient sword and began to battle the ghostly spirit. After a dark and mysterious struggle, the ghost retreated and the room returned to normal. The hotel owner promised to protect the couple and bury the spirit in a cursed secret. Ricardo and Maria, despite wanting to forget the night of terror they had experienced, knew that the hotel's curse was always there. After that day, no one ever spoke of the events at the hotel, and people began to avoid it. Ricardo and Maria, having lived through a terrifying ordeal, had an experience they could never forget. A few weeks later, the old hotel owner sent an invitation to Ricardo and Maria. The couple decided to visit the hotel to try to forget the horrific night. They felt they needed to be at the hotel again, perhaps to face their fears. At the hotel entrance, the old man greeted them and took them to their room. As the night progressed, they began to hear strange sounds around the room. As Ricardo moved towards the door to call the old man, Maria noticed a figure approaching them. In that moment, they realized the figure was the hotel's cursed spirit. The ghostly spirit, dark and angry, approached their room and did everything it could to frighten them. Ricardo and Maria's screams echoed through the hotel, but no one heard them. The ghostly spirit enveloped the room in a dark mist, trapping the couple. They tried to escape in panic, but the spirit was pulling them into the darkness. With one last desperate effort, Ricardo and Maria managed to break free from the spirit's grip. But the ordeal wasn't over. The ghostly spirit continued to haunt the hotel, and the couple decided to perform an ancient ritual with the hotel's owner to banish the spirit. During the ritual, the old man entered the room with a sword and faced the ghostly spirit once more. The battle intensified, and the room filled with dark energy. Suddenly, the room shook with the spirit's fury as it attacked the couple with the intent to destroy them. With one final scream, the room began to collapse, and everything was shrouded in silence. The hotel's old and cursed spirit never returned. However, after these events, no one ever stayed at the hotel again. It became an abandoned ghost town. The terrifying memories etched into Ricardo and Maria's minds remained forever hidden in the dark hotel of Madrid. After the terrifying events, that hotel became a resting place for ghosts. The Haunted Inn, a tale of Lena and Daniel. Years ago, in a desolate corner of China, there stood an old inn with a dark and eerie atmosphere. No one remembered when it was built, but the locals called it the Ghost Inn. According to ancient legends, those who stayed at the inn were haunted by mysterious figures and vanished, never to return. One day, a young couple named Lena and Daniel decided to travel around China and chose to stay at this old inn. They were both adventurers and didn't believe in such stories. However, upon arrival, they admitted that the atmosphere was truly frightening. The inn's old walls were covered in moss and seemed ready to swallow anyone who entered. That night, as Lena and Daniel lay in bed, they began hearing strange noises. First, there was a faint knocking sound, followed by the sound of footsteps moving around their room. Frightened but trying to remain brave, they left their room and ventured down the corridor. With every step, the presence of mysterious entities grew stronger. Suddenly, a shadow appeared and started approaching them. Lena and Daniel, terrified, backed away, but the shadow embraced them. Out of the shadows emerged a human figure who began to speak, recounting the horrific events of the inn's past. Years ago, the inn was run by a family attempting to communicate with spirits from another world. One night, they accidentally summoned malevolent spirits, filling the inn with dark energy. From that night on, many people disappeared, never to return. Lena and Daniel listened in fear and spent the night at the inn. By morning, the shadow and figures had vanished, and Lena and Daniel could never explain what they had experienced. From that day on, no one dared to approach the Ghost Inn, which became an ancient legend. Some time later, Lena and Daniel continued their travels, leaving the terrifying memories of the Ghost Inn behind. However, a few months later, the couple began to have strange dreams. Every night, they saw the same shadows and figures, who told them to return to the inn. Determined to understand the meaning of their dreams, Lena and Daniel decided to go back to the inn. This time, the inn was even darker and more frightening. With every step, they felt the traces of the horrific events that had occurred there. In one of the inn's remotest rooms, they found an old journal. The journal detailed the last moments of those who had disappeared. Lena and Daniel, shocked, continued reading the journal and suddenly felt the presence of the evil spirits that had been released into their room. They tried to escape in fear, but darkness enveloped their room, and they felt a force holding their hands. The shadows and figures reappeared, embracing Lena and Daniel. As they whispered their final words, "You'll stay here forever," the couple vanished in an instant. The next morning, the Ghost Inn was found abandoned, and Lena and Daniel were never seen again. Years later, stories about the inn turned into legend, and no one dared to step into that dark and mysterious place. The disappearance of Lena and Daniel proved that the Ghost Inn was truly cursed. Thanks for listening.